The reality is that somebody has to drive that family. And you and I are anointed by God as men. It is to be that person it is that is supposed to do that. Any point in time to where it is that we are not doing that, we are not living in the authority it is that's been given to us. And as such, you're kind of a shell of a man. And living as a shell of a man, you're not leading your wife. You're not setting the example for your children. I'm not showing my sons what it is that they're supposed to be. I'm not emulating to my daughter who it is that she's supposed to marry because I'm scared of my wife's emotions. And I ultimately just got to a point to where it is that I love my wife. I just don't ask her permission. I might ask her opinion, but I'm not asking her permission because ultimately it's my responsibility, good or bad.
Mr. Jeremy Hill, welcome to the Present Fathers podcast. I'm really excited to have you on today. I think your story is very inspiring. I think you've accomplished quite a bit, so you got a lot of authority to speak on these things. And let's just dive right in, man. Tell us a little bit about kind of those initial struggles, right? Because I know in your story, you met your wife, kind of had a plan for your life, and then basically took a turn in a different direction there. So let's just start right with that, because I think a lot of guys can maybe relate to the fact that life doesn't always go like we planned.
Totally. Well, first, good to see you. Good morning, fellas. George, Justin, great to share some time with you and looking forward to the conversation. So life doesn't go the way you want. Well, no shit, right? And I think, everybody romanticizes the idea of what it is that their life or what marriage or fatherhood or business or making money or whatever is supposed to be. And it brings you back to that idea of we plan and God laughs, right? Two, think about your life like a movie. Who would want to watch that movie? Right? Can you imagine like the preview trailer to George's life? Well, George grew up. He was rich, good looking. All the girls like him. He made tons of money. His kids adored him. His wife, he never had any challenges. The end. People would be like, fucking stupid movie. I don't want to go see that. There's no, right? There's no struggle. There's no victory. Right. There's no down. There's
no
you gotta have this. Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, there's no suspense. You've got to have the stuff to where, the music gets dark and the lights get low and you go through and that's what makes life interesting, And so I think, for us, yeah, very much so. We certainly had a plan for our life, and, I had designed in my life what it is that I thought it would be. And I think a lot of people have this, 1, 2, 3 paint by numbers of what it is that their life is going to be, supposed to be, want to be. It's usually never that. It might be some facsimile of that, but ours was, rather than 1, 2, 3 paint by numbers, it was kind of like drive really fast. And when you hit something, turn, so.
I love it. All right. Well, so just a little bit more context here. I kind of jumped right over, but you've been married 28 years. You have 3 children, right?
We do.
And started multiple businesses. Now you're running a firm that's existed for quite a while, it looks like. So tell us a little bit more just about your background, and then we'll go into your story a little bit further.
Of course. So, the quick story on me is, so my wife and I have been together almost 30 years. We have our 29th wedding anniversary coming up here in a couple of months. She's normally a really good judge of character outside of her time that, that she's chosen to spend with me. She's usually pretty good at decision making outside of that one kind of flaw there. Just kidding. But we have our 29th wedding anniversary coming up. We have 3 pretty awesome kids. So I've got 24, 21, and then my youngest son just turned 18 today. And so boy, girl, boy, Joshua, Kaylin, and Tristan, 3 incredible kids. My wife is fucking super hot. Like, awesome.
Money.
And winning, dude. And I got a really cool dog and a wonderful family and a great church and a great family and a good business. And we moved down to Arizona from Seattle about 2 years ago and are just really enjoying this kind of next, chapter of what life reveals to us. It's been pretty cool. So from a business side, outside of the family structure, from a business side, I started a company called JB Capital almost 25 years ago. I am the J and the B. So, pretty smart, but maybe not that great at marketing. Like, I don't know, JB, we'll just call it that, right?
Good initials. What would I know about
initials.
that?
Exactly. I'd like to tell people it's James Bond and nobody believes me, but I'm like, it's James Bond Capital, pretty much. But the business started kind of by happy accident almost 25 years ago, and it's turned out to be one of those kind of beautiful happy accidents that certainly wasn't on purpose, but it's kind of grown and evolved and really been kind of a defining moment of defensive entrepreneurship and independence and kind of charting your own course and figuring your own shit out. And it's been great, to be honest with you. So the business itself, for context, We started as an independent investment bank. So basically we were a hired gun to go solve problems. Most of those problems had something to do with money, right? George or Justin's software business, construction business, whatever it is that you do, you need $2 or $5 or $8 or $10 million to buy out your partner, or open your next office, or get your next product to market, or pay off your wife or your dog or your ex-wife, or whatever the story is. And your bank and your rich uncle won't call you back. And so now what do you do? Right. And so we got really good at kind of turning all the dials of the Rubik's Cube it is to solve those problems for these growing companies. Fast forward almost 25 years. We're about 2.1 billion in transaction and advisory work. We started our first funds, which meaning rather than acting as advisor, banker, broker, doing it from a principal position where we're investing off of my balance sheet and then raising funds alongside that. We started that about 4.5, almost 5 years ago. We have 3 funds in the market that invest in corporate credit and real estate credit, and are just trying to make a dent. Trying to do things that, hopefully make a difference for some of these growing companies, and helping them think through decisions and get the right type of capital to grow their business and hire employees and, do good stuff. So that's a quick blush. Is that good?
That's
yeah,
awesome.
That's great.
Wow.
Good job crunching that all into about 2.5 minutes there. Well done.
No one ever does that.
Yeah. So 28 years of marriage, 3 kids, serial entrepreneur, obviously, banking finance world, pretty high speed, moving fast, lots of pressure there. What are, maybe you alluded to earlier, right? Go real fast, hit something, then we got to turn. What are some of those roadblocks and hard lessons along the way that you learned that have paid massive dividends in your marriage, right? Because I'm of the firm belief that if a man prioritizes his marriage and invests in that first, everything else is downstream, right? You're going to naturally show up better in business. You're going to show up better in your friend groups or parenting your kids if the marriage is really on fire. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that, managing so much and building so much and still also having a strong marriage for nearly 3 decades, right? That's no small feat.
Yeah.
So,
well, we didn't always have a strong marriage for 3 decades. I think that that's the reality of it. And that goes back to the idea of, we all think that marriage is going to be easy and raising kids is going to be easy, and, making money and dealing with family dynamics is going to be easy because I love her, because she loves me. The rest of brother, it doesn't work that way. The reason why it is that we have such an extraordinary marriage today, and family dynamic and relationship with the kids, and kind of involvement in the community in these businesses. The reason why we have that now is because for the last 20 plus years, I've figured out all the shit that doesn't work. That's the reality, right? And so when anybody tells you, or anybody's listening, or any, influencer bullshit it is that you see, it is that says that it's perfect, dude, it's not. Men and women generally are probably the 2 most opposite things on the planet for how it is that you look, feel, make decisions, plan, and do these things. And, you've said this kind of jokingly before. It's kind of like, okay, take your cat and your dog, lock them in the bathroom, come back in 4 or 5 hours and be like, you guys just get along. It'll be great. You're like, dude, no, right? You're like, what do you mean? Oh my God, the house is right. Like, you're just different. Right. And what you don't, I think, realize it is that when you ultimately get married, you're getting married to this beautiful woman it is that you love and adore and cherish, that becomes this oxygen to you, to where you feel like it is that you don't want to breathe without them. That's when it's the one. And so as we're kind of coaching our children, and as my son is getting older into that serious dating phase, as my daughter is doing that thing, it's not, I like them, I love them, they're great, this kind of thing. Who gives a shit? There's lots of that. Is it oxygen to you, right? Like, is it filling to your soul that way? Even when you get that with this woman it is that you love, you bring that in, but you bring in 20 or 25 years or however old you are of history, of relationships, of fights with our parents, of all the dynamics that have been there, of previous boyfriends, of all this other kind of thing. And then you're figuring out how to deal with all that stuff. And candidly, it's just tough. And then you kind of grow and mature together, and it's tough. And I think it is that one of the things that was critical to my wife and I that we ultimately figured out over time is that there's always going to be times to where it is that you're frustrated, or that she's frustrated with me, or one thing or another. And that's just normal, dude. You're just people, right? You have that with your friends. You have that with your employers. Of course, you're going to have that with your spouse or your wife, right? But the 2 things I think it is that were there is you never want to quit on the same day. And the reality is that you ultimately want to choose each other as as frustrated as I've ever been with her or she with me, or that you're usually frustrated with outside dynamics it is that really don't have anything to do with my wife, but that stress there is causing conflict here. It's just to remember it is that the reality is all of the job, the business, the money, the holiday, the family, the in-laws, all of that's really kind of bullshit. And it really doesn't matter so long as I am always choosing my wife. The rest of the stuff will figure it out. You'll make money, you'll lose money. You'll have this job, you'll have that job. You'll live here, you'll live there. You move, your kid will make the team, you won't make the team. Who gives a shit, right? Like as long as I am putting the first things first, the rest of the stuff kind of figures itself out.
This episode is brought to you by Pre-Sleep. Hey there, my name is George Hayworth. I'm a husband and father and an entrepreneur. I work out a lot. I like to stay physically fit and active. And one of my secrets for how I stay so healthy and get so much done isn't because I'm some awesome guy. It's because I use Pre-Sleep. Now, this product is one of my personal favorites. It's probably the best supplement in my cabinet, and that is because it's 100% pure and natural. All the ingredients are made right here in the US of A, and the product is based around magnesium, L-theanine, and glycine, and these three work together to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. And then on top of that, it increases the quality of your sleep. So it is a triple threat when it comes to optimizing your sleep. And my favorite thing about it is that there's no melatonin, so it's not habit forming or anything like that. And there's no sugar whatsoever. So it is super simple to use. You just take one scoop, put it in a glass of water, stir it up down the hatch. I do it about an hour before bedtime, and I sleep great. I have no issues getting to sleep, staying asleep, and I track it on my watch. It tells me how good my sleep quality is, and it is exponentially better when I use my Pre-Sleep. So what are you waiting for? Go check it out. Sign up today, get yourself a tub of this, and you will never look back. Your best sleep is waiting in this bottle of magic right here. Get 10% off at checkout by using the code GEORGE10. That's GEORGE10, or tap the link in the description below.
Man, I love that. So you had me contemplating. I've been watching The Chosen lately, and what an incredible series. And I just found it so incredible that everybody that followed him were broken men, and some of the women. So it's kind of funny. You mentioned how, life never goes the way you want it, or, I think Christ wanted those who were broken. He wanted to tame the Mustang, so to speak, like the Thunder Brothers and Andrew and Simon Peter, whatever you want to call him, Peter. And it's kind of funny because that kind of relates to marriage in the way that we are two broken people that have to come together and we have to figure out. And I think people don't realize you have to work at marriage. For a marriage to work, it is work. And so those pieces, if you work together, you could find ways to put them, into one puzzle and, create a better marriage, but you'll never have a perfect marriage. So I loved what you said because that had me contemplating about that. Now, speaking of entrepreneurship, my wife and I are opening her own private clinic.
Nice.
We just started demo this week, so we're really excited, but we're a little nervous. And I know there's a lot of other parents out there who kind of just dove into the entrepreneurial side of things. What advice would you give to somebody who's ready to take that leap, or who may be scared to take that leap and is contemplating it?
You know what? The reality is not everybody is cut out for entrepreneurship, right? We've moved into a world that romanticizes it, right? As be your own boss and you can do all these kinds of things and all that kind of thing. Okay, maybe. It's not easy. In fact, it's probably one of the most difficult things in the world it is to do. That's why when people win, you almost make them heroes. You put them on a pedestal. They write a book, they talk, they tour, they podcast, they do whatever it is that they do. And you want to listen to them going, dude, how'd you figure it out? Because I'm struggling. I would think for those people that are beginning to start that business or wanting to start that business, if you have that itch, right? Like if it's one of those things that you keep revisiting in your mind, or you keep revisiting it as a couple, should we do this? Should we not? Should we do this? Should we not? And it's not a fleeting conversation. Like if that conversation has happened for a few months now or a year now, like eventually you need to scratch the itch, regardless of what happens, right? If it takes off, fantastic. If it's a freaking failure and you fall on your face, awesome. That's okay too, right? But you do need to scratch that itch. For the guys that are actually going to go do that, I think the things it is that you should expect is you're introducing something new into your life. And so when anything new comes into your life, whether it's a new job or a move or, anything else, there's a variable there, and that variable is going to take time, attention, distraction, these other types of things. And you want to make sure it is that you're talking about that a little bit more with your wife, with your kids, kind of setting expectations there to make sure it is that it doesn't get away from you, right? Because again, going back to kind of that kind of standard and alignment, it is the important things are the important things, and business is one of those things. So long as, from kind of your faith to your family to your, marriage relationships and these kind of things, that's an alignment, that business is there to support those things and not take away from those things. That's one of the key things it is that I think it is that keeps coming back to us, because we're in the same throes of things now, is that our three funds it is that we have are winding down. And now we're in this world of, okay, are we going to start another fund? Are we going to buy another company? Are we going to do these kinds of things? And then what is that commitment going to be? If I do this, that's a 5-year commitment. If I do this, that might be a lifelong commitment. If I do, what are we going to do there? And really talking through and thinking through that with my wife and my kids, because they're getting older, and getting involved about what does that mean for this next kind of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, and how does my decisions affect my wife? How does my decisions affect my kids, and what it is that they're going to do, and just being a little bit more kind of conscious of that, I think is really going to help. But ultimately, if you got that entrepreneurship itch, and you got to go scratch it and see what happens.
You highlighted such a great point, and I'm living this pretty much daily right now. I started my entrepreneurial journey last year, so it's still very much in the throes of the startup phase, right? And all the new stresses that come with that, and the new adaptations for the family and everything. But even if you're not going to be an entrepreneur, right, like you alluded to, life will have a change. You got to change careers. You got to move somewhere else, right? Everyone's going to experience something of that nature at some point. And I want to kind of dovetail that back to something you said earlier too, where it's a choice, right? You have to choose your spouse, you have to choose your wife, and there's that also implies responsibility. And I'm real big on this, that as the man, ultimately, you are responsible for the outcomes of your family, right? When you die, God's not going to go to your wife and say, "What'd you do with this family I gave you?" He's going to look right at you and ask you that question.
Yeah.
And I see this a lot in the modern age here, where guys want to consistently blame women or something else for their problems, and they think that blame is even relevant, right? Well, life's not fair, right? There isn't always someone to blame, and that choice of, what, this situation sucks, what can I do to actually take action, is a huge, huge, huge liberator, actually, for men, that I think they don't realize. And so, for just a little bit more context here before the question, is like, what I've realized too is, with every new phase of thing that I'm experiencing, it's not just about me. It is about the marriage, and it is a choice I have to make and remind myself that, okay, maybe my wife is more fearful now, right? Money's tighter. She's naturally more afraid of that situation. Well, I asked for this in a way, right? I chose to start this company. I can't get mad at her for that. And it's a choice I made that I have to remain responsible for, still covering over her fears and giving her reassurance and things like that, even if it's frustrating or maybe unfair, right? It's not about fair. And so I would just love you to expand upon that from your experiences and wisdom that you've acquired over the years, because I think this is a huge problem for the modern man, where they're always looking for someone else to blame instead of just taking ownership and accountability of what they can control today and what they can actually start putting effort towards.
Not sure that I could say it better than you, but the reality is that whether you choose to accept it or not, and whether it is that you have a faith or not, the reality is that the world is suffering from a lack of strong male leaders in masculinity, not an overabundance of it, right? And so this is the issue it is that we're seeing across the board right now, to where it is, regardless whether it's guys my age, guys your age, or the up and comers. This is why it is guys like old movies. You like the Cary Grant type movie. You like the old type James Bond like movie. You like the even more present day. You like John Wick. You like what's Matt Damon in the movies it is, where he's the whatever dude, kind of a thing, right?
Yeah, Jason Bourne or whatever.
Yeah, brother, that's what I was looking for, right? Need some more coffee. But you like this because strong masculine roles it is that have a standard, that are tough, that are educated, that are well dressed, that are well spoken, that are these kinds of things. That's the stuff ultimately it is that you're attracted to. The challenge is when we look across everything else, what's happening right now is that, men are portrayed as these fat fucking bumbling idiots across every television show, sitcom, this, that, and the other thing, which is just embarrassing. And so what happens, I think, is that's now kind of filtered down in society to where it is that um, you feel like it's normal to be, I don't even want to say average, because like well below average. It's normal it is to
Complacent.
kind of shuck responsibility, to say it is, well, I'm fat and I'm broke and I'm divorced and my kids don't talk to me because it's this guy's fault, because it's this, or because my dad didn't hug me as a kid, or some other bullshit. I mean, the reality is that any excuse will work. The 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 cause here is the fact it is of people, like you said, it is are checking responsibility. They're choosing to not take it on necessarily. It is that succeed or fail. I'm okay to own that. And the reality is that's a weight that most people it is are not ready to take. My wife and I again are coming up on 29 years. I think for a long time early in our marriage is that I allowed the emotional kind of volatility of my wife. And this is not casting my wife as, oh, she's crazy. She's a woman. They're all fucking like this, right? And not in a bad way, because one of the best things it is that you love about women is that they're not men, that they are emotional and soft and wonderful and beautiful and that kind of a thing. But allowing that it is to affect the emotional and kind of volatile ups and downs of how it is that you're feeling, allowing that it is to either affect or influence the responsibility of the decisions that I know that I should make, but it's going to piss off my wife and I don't want to. Everybody's done this. I just don't want to fucking listen to it. I can't deal with, right? And so you don't. So you don't do what it is that you know that you should do, because I just don't want to listen to her bitch, or she's going to complain about money, or she's going to be upset with me, or what if it doesn't go good? I don't want to listen to my wife. I don't want to disappoint my kids. I don't want to have my parents in my ear. I don't want all these kinds of things. And so you stop. And when you stop, that's the problem. It took me a while to get to a point to where it is that I understood that success or failure of, let's move to Arizona, let's start this business, let's move away from this side of the business to starting a new fund, let's go invest in this property, let's go do all of those kinds of things. The reality is that somebody has to drive that family. And you and I are anointed by God as men. It is to be that person it is that is supposed to do that. Any point in time to where it is that we are not doing that, we are not living in the authority it is that's been given to us. And as such, you're kind of a shell of a man. And living as a shell of a man, you're not leading your wife. You're not setting the example for your children. I'm not showing my sons what it is that they're supposed to be. I'm not emulating to my daughter who it is that she's supposed to marry, because I'm scared of my wife's emotions. And I ultimately just got to a point to where it is that I love my wife. I just don't ask her permission. I might ask her opinion, but I'm not asking her permission, because ultimately it's my responsibility, good or bad.
I love that, man. And I think that's one of the problems with society today is our roles have just gotten so misconstrued. And, you know, that's the uniqueness of femininity and masculinity. And the problem is somebody did a study on inmates and talk about toxic masculinity, and some other idiot decided, hey, I'm going to take this and just say, generalize it to all men, like all men can have toxic masculinity. No, there's no such thing as toxic masculinity or femininity. There's just toxic people. That's
Well
plain and
said.
simple.
Yeah. Is that where that
Femininity,
idea of toxic masculinity came? Was from a prison study?
a prison study, because they were finding that certain inmates essentially created toxicity within the environment for other men, based off of peer pressure, strength, fear, whatever the case may be. So it was literally a case study that got misconstrued by probably some reporter somewhere who was woke and decided, hey, I'm just going to run with this. And then
There's the
Here's the
truth
rest of
of
the
it.
world.
A woke reporter took some shit and twisted it. Now it's screwed the whole thing up for
Yeah,
everybody. There
who
you
would
go.
have thought, right? No,
Yeah,
not in
right.
this day and age. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a problem, is because even femininity, which is something that is even in this day and age still respected, in some ways it's not. Like they've turned it and twisted it, and now it's not understood properly. And I think that's what is so damn frustrating. But it's also the beautiful thing about femininity, is that it is what makes women unique. Like you said, they're soft, they're caring, they're loving. But now we're in an environment, in a world where the world says, no, you're supposed to be independent. You're supposed to be Miss Tough Girl, Miss this, that, and the other. And it's like, no, you are supposed to, and I'm not saying bend the knee, but submit to your husband. And when women hear that nowadays, I'm not submitting. Why would I submit to a man? It's like, that's literally what it says in the
Yeah, no, go
Bible.
submit to a
You're
male boss at
100%.
work for
You're
eight
Yeah,
hours a
yeah.
day.
And I'm like, you're submitting to something in life, whether you realize it or not. Why
Well,
not
so do men. We
give
also
your husband
submit
the
to authority.
leadership?
You
Well,
know,
it is
it's a power struggle. It creates
it's
a
a
power
power
struggle within a marriage.
so you see all this stuff with all this. I mean, and again, if we upset, you're always going to upset somebody. We can never make anybody or everybody happy. But the reality is, you look at all this feminist bullshit it is that's come over the last 20 years, and the women it is that seem to be the most conscious of, I don't need a man, strong boss bitch, blah blah, whatever bullshit it is that's out there. The reality of them, look at it really. How many of them are happy? How many of them are
Zero.
functional?
how many cats do they own?
Right? Zero. No. Right? No. Now, there's also some of that too, to the fact it is that I'm with you on the fact of a degree of kind of alignment. And, I heard some comics say, men and women are different and all this other kind of thing is, what the best thing it is that my favorite quality about my wife is? She's not a dude, right? Like, that's my favorite quality, right? And so you look at this and say, the beauty and uniqueness of a wonderful woman it is that's spiritually guided, who sees the value in being a soft place for her husband, and building a loving and caring household, and doing the things it is that God has created a woman to do, to complement and serve and uplift her husband. I think that there are women out there that want to do that, and the challenge is the husband doesn't deserve it. The husband hasn't done enough to make sure it is that he's worthy of her submission. Right? You hear these things every once in a while. It is that a man needs to be so comfortable in his leadership and masculinity that it allows the woman to be feminine. And right now, there's too many men, I think it is, that are choosing to, do boys' weekends. And they work all weekend. Oh, God, honey, I've been so stressed. I don't have time to spend, time with you and the kids this weekend, because I'm playing golf with my idiot fat friends this weekend. And then I'm going to go, to poker night, and then go do this. And then they wonder why it is that, their marriage sucks, their sex life sucks, and their, kids are not listening to them, but they're emulating some dude that they found on the internet, right? Like, that's the challenge. And so I think for men, if you're having issues with your wife and she's, maybe pushing back on some of the stuff it is that you're trying to do, I think you need to maybe look less at her and her faults and more at you and where it is that you can elevate your game to deserve her respect.
Absolutely. Yep. Because what leadership is actually influence, right?
Without a
Like,
doubt.
people think leadership is control, and it's not. It's influence.
Yeah.
And so we accept this in virtually every area of life except marriage, right? Somehow,
Well said.
right? Now it's this dirty word. But to your point, right? Yeah, it's earned, right? It is not, hey, I have the title, so you must, right? That's tyranny. Actual leadership is the influence of others. And so to your point of maybe she is disrespectful, maybe she's not being a supportive wife or whatever, we'll take a hard look in the mirror. What are you actually doing to change that behavior? And in many cases, it comes with you changing the way you're behaving first, and then it forces a response in her. Men act, women respond. That's how it is. And to your point earlier, they're all kind of emotionally all over the place, right? That is how women are designed. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. And so we typically, as men, try to problem solve it like a man does. And then what you naturally do is you masculinize your wife. Well, you didn't marry a dude, you married a woman.
Right.
You wanted her to be feminine. You wanted her. So you have to kind of take it both ways. You don't get it. It all comes together as a part of the package. But when you actually learn that your specific actions create that response in her, it will change her behavior. It influences her to behave differently. And part of that too, then, is you earn the strength and leadership capital to actually correct her. Your marriage starts to change drastically. You'll feel more fulfilled. She will feel more fulfilled and more protected and covered. And then the whole marriage starts to change. And I'm speaking from experience here, right? I got it wrong for almost a decade. And now, the last 2 years, we've really turned things around. And it started with me. Did my wife have a lot of things she was still wrong in? Absolutely. 100%. She's not perfect. She'll never claim to be perfect. But when I started taking ownership of my stuff and acting on what I could actually control, what I could actually change about me, a lot of these problems that she was doing just stopped. I didn't even have to address them because it was in response to something I was or wasn't doing already. And so that's a hard to swallow pill for a lot of guys. And I think the bigger issue here, that it sounds like maybe you're delving into this world yourself, kind of, part-time maybe, is I think men were just led astray. They were trained incorrectly because I didn't know any better. I thought I was doing all the right things, and couldn't understand why my marriage wasn't where I wanted it to be. And I think there's a lot of cultural influences that go against it. So, again, not to assign blame necessarily, but we need to diagnose the problem. And so guys need to also wake up and realize that it may not be fair. It may not be just, or whatever you want to call it, but you actually have total control over changing the situation. As soon as you start to act, things will improve. So, Jeremy, I don't want to go too far into this necessarily, but I know, just reading on your website, that you're involved in kind of getting into this world too. What from your perspective are the things that men need to start waking up to and taking action on to actually change the situation for their marriage, which in turn will then show up in their professional lives and in every other aspect of life they show up in?
One of the things, lots. I mean, the reality is that there's just these little simple things it is that all of us do. I think the first thing is you need to give yourself grace, but not excuse your responsibility. I think it is that we allow ourselves to, in a simple way, have one drink too many, to take a meeting when you shouldn't have, to stay out too late, to do some little, it's not even a crack. It's not a chink in your armor. It's just it's like a flaw in your honor. Right? Like there's something about a man it is that you want to be proud of and be thoughtful of, that the way it is that you show up. And I think that we excuse ourselves without holding ourselves responsible. We say, it's okay, whatever it is, without actually sitting down, pausing, and thinking about why it is that you did something or not, and making decisions to hold yourself to a better standard tomorrow. I think that's the root of it. Ultimately, comes back to what are the standards it is that you hold for yourself. Because if I don't have a standard it is that I hold for myself, then how can I develop, emulate, and pass down a standard it is that I'm going to hold my wife and my children to, and lead them through that? I think that is the most simple thing. We talk about this kind of men's leadership in groups and this kind of a thing. And you've been heavily involved in that. And I've heard great things about all the work it is that you're doing. So I really applaud you there, and excited to learn more about that and see what it is that you're doing. We've kind of unconsciously started doing that as well. And I think, you have these blessings it is that come into your life it is that are relatively unconscious. Some of the best dreams it is that happened in your life are the ones it is that you didn't plan for, right? Whether it's a child or a business or a relationship or, anything, right? And we started doing these little just kind of connections and collections it is with people, right? Just to have good conversations, no agenda, no air, no nothing. I just want some fellowship with some good guys. Come over to the house, leave your phone inside the house. Let's have, a couple of good drinks, a cigar, a good meal, light a fire, listen to some music, have some bullshit, have some fellowship. You want to break down a couple of things and talk? Great. You don't want to talk to anybody, you want to be left alone, then go fuck off by the fire and, have a drink and cool, great. And did that 7 or 8 or 9 times in Seattle. to just have people come over and just kind of take your armor off, right? You needed a place to where it is that you could just kind of, you know, away from your wife, away from your kids, away from your clients, away from your phone, away from all the other kind of stuff, and just have a place of peace. And started doing that more down here in Arizona as well, and it kind of took off. And I think the thing it is that you don't realize that men don't have that place of peace. And you're going through life and with your business and with your wife and with your children and with how life goes, you are almost forced to develop broad shoulders and a strong back, whether you want to or not. And it's as you continue on that path and you continue it for a longer period of time, and as your relationship gets longer and your kids get older and your responsibilities get heavier, you don't realize it is that burden's fucking heavy. And it gets to a point to where it is that it can be lonely. And for me, my almost favorite times are the times it is that I'm by myself. It's the times early in the morning, or it's times late at night when I have some quiet, I don't have interruption. And it's almost like that, time in the shower, to where it is that you remove the stimulation. And when you remove the stimulation, it is from bings and dings and phones and emails and kids and all the other kind of shit, right? It allows your mind to relax. And when your mind relaxes, it gives you the freedom it is to process, to think, to problem solve, to do these kinds of things. And I think if you can create an environment for that, either independently or with a couple of good guys it is around you, it certainly gives way it is to kind of sharpening your axe and making you a little bit more, better for whatever shows up tomorrow.
Yeah, there's this lie that we've accepted that in order for a man to be a good husband and father, it means he lives solely for his family, that is his number one priority, is for them. And that sounds good, but it's actually foolishness, because if you, think business, military, anything, at some point the leader has to make themselves a priority, because if you're taken out, now the organization has no head, right? Now the leadership is gone. So men, yes, your family should be a priority, no question, right? Everything you do is for the purpose of bettering their life, but you're still at the head of it. You can't completely deplete yourself. And so you're talking about just basic getting together, putting the armor down, having some fellowship and brotherhood. You're designed for that. It's not this special request. Like, it's a must have. It's like breathing air. As a man, you have to have that on a consistent basis, and not doing that is quite literally risking your family, right? So I actually just posted about this today, where the danger of not investing in yourself as a man, whether it's your growth or just your own restoration with some basic fellowship and brotherhood, you're naturally going to be showing up as a depleted version of yourself. Your wife's going to lose attraction. She's going to start wondering why she married you. All that, like, it's just how it goes. Your kids aren't going to respect you. Like you said, they're going to look to someone else on the internet or whatever, right? These things can be consequences of not prioritizing yourself. And we're not going to do it at the expense of our family, but we also have to make it a priority to take some time to decompress, to be filled up with brotherhood and things like that. So I just want to throw that out there, because it's not this nice to have. It's mission essential for men to reconnect with each other for real, with no pretense or any of that kind of thing, and just genuine fellowship. And not doing that, not taking that time out of the schedule, isn't robbing from your family. It's ensuring that you actually show up as a capable and involved leader, so you can give back to them again, because you're not on empty. So I think Justin had something for you. I just wanted to kind of tie that up, because that's something we firmly believe in here. And this podcast is about empowering men to be better fathers. Well, fathers, you have to take some time for you too. And it's good for you to demonstrate that your children as well, both boys and girls. They need to see that dad takes some time for himself, to better himself, improve himself, rest, all those things, right? If you just show that you're just Mr. Live for everyone else, you're actually going to condition them to just be codependent children and have very unhealthy relationships in the future.
You're crippling them. Yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
In your efforts, it is to try to protect and provide and give them everything it is that they need, without giving them the opportunity it is to be able to do shit on their own. You're actually hurting them. I'm in 100% agreement with you. It is that the things it is that we do at men, we do for the benefit, right? I mean, God has put us on this earth. It is to make sure it is that we protect and provide and love on these women and raise our children and make them better. The best way it is for us to be able to do that is to make sure it is that we are that example, right? Like, I can't protect my wife if I'm not strong. That's why you're asking me to get in the gym. right? There is that Jordan Peterson clip it is that we've seen before about the fact of, would you rather be a gardener in a war or a warrior in a garden, right? You know, there is no, there's nothing to be proud of for being weak. You want to be strong and capable and fierce, and then learn how to control it, right? Like I want to be an absolute threat, not because I want to go friggin' whack somebody in the parking lot or something like that, but in the effort it is that there's ever a period of time it is to where it is that I need to protect my wife and children, and I need to be capable. Well, the same thing is true when it is that, I need to be able to lead them through decisions. The best way it is that I can lead them through decisions is to make sure it is that I'm doing mental push-ups, that I'm constantly sewing into myself, that I'm growing, that I'm learning, that I'm going to a seminar, I'm listening to a podcast, I'm reading a book, I'm having fellowship, I'm having mentorship, I'm doing whatever it is that can to make sure that my mind is strong, that my body is strong, that my alignment with God is good, that my business is strong, that I'm making money that I can provide in case something happens to my wife, that happens to her parents, that these kinds of things. Like, you have to do that. The issue, I think, is that people get that out of bounds, right? They'll do nothing but work, and then they're too tired that they don't sow into their wife. Or they'll be, great at church, right? That whole thing of, you're so heavenly bound, you're no earthly good, right? You see that before as well. And so I was having a conversation with somebody on this the other day, is that what you said is perfectly said, on the fact it is that men need to realize that they need to have their own time, right? That's fine. And it's okay to be selfish with that. You want to make sure that that's not out of alignment, that you work all day and then you do this and then you do this and then you do this and then you go have your time, right? Like, if I decide tonight it is that I'm going to go out with buddies and go have cigars and whiskey till 11 o'clock at night, or I'm going to have a couple of people over, or I'm going to go to dinner, or I'm going to take a night away, or I'm going to do any of these kinds of things, I don't feel guilty about any of that, because I've spent the entire week loving on my wife, making sure she's catered to, taken care of, that I've sewed into my kids, that I check in with them every day, that I have one-on-one time and I'm leading them, I'm walking them through decisions, I'm checking in on things that they're struggling with or going to, so whatever it is. So if there's time it is to where it is that they come or they call and I'm having 3 hours by myself, cool. It doesn't bother them, right? And so it's just making sure it is that you've got those priorities, and caring for them. So when you need to prioritize yourself, it's okay.
Yeah, I want to touch back on something you said. God, I loved it. It was every man needs a place to take his armor off. And I think the word retreat came to mind for me. Every man needs a retreat. And I think what you described men needing is exactly what every man needs: a fire, a cigar, some whiskey, or if you're not a drinker or smoker, just something, a vice that you can sit back and relax and just go and talk to some men. We talk about tribes all the time here, but um, I don't think a lot of guys realize as well that when you get married, it's a big decision because you're taking on your wife's burdens at that point. It's not just yours anymore. And guys don't think that
Back to
through.
that
They just think,
choice, right?
yeah,
You made the choice.
yeah, they think, oh, this is going to be easy. No, it's not. It's the hardest thing you'll probably ever damn do. And then your kids, when you start having kids, that's why it's another hard life choice. That's why they call it life choices, because you're taking on the burden of your children as well. And guys don't realize is that, like you said, that gets so heavy. And if you don't take it off every now and again, you become an island. And I'm guilty of that. The loneliness you talk about, I've felt it recently. I mean, with as many kids as we have right now, I don't get nights away because I can't leave her with 3 children. That's not fair to her. And she's doing all this work on the side. So yeah, it's finding time for yourself. But for me, like that's cars. I love cars, and I have a C7 Z06, and I take the top
Nice.
off and I go. I don't
Yeah.
care if I'm going. I don't even pick a place to go. I just drive. I leave the top off, see the sunshine, feel the heat. Louisiana mugginess, and just chill. It's the nicest thing in the world to me. But it's like you said, like every man needs, and if that means you have to get your ass up at 4:30 a.m., get up, have an hour to yourself, read the Bible, drink a coffee, go work out. I mean, working out is something George pushes on a lot of folks. And if you're not working out as a man, you're hindering yourself. And I know that for a fact because I worked out with my first 2 children, and my marriage and my fatherhood was in such a better place. I have found myself angrier, shorter fused, just not in a good place mentally recently because I have not worked out and I have a third child in the mix and there's like no sleep. I have no energy. I'm lazy. I'm tired. And it's like, I got my ass back in the gym and I'm like, all right, feeling good about myself again. Let's get it
There
going,
you
you know?
go.
So that's my advice to them. But if guys don't have a tribe or a place to retreat, what advice would you give to those guys to kind of try to find something?
That's a great question. I think one of the things it is you can do something to start off with. You can do something simple like what it is that you said. Like it doesn't have to be, I'm going to go away for 2 days and go into the jungle and Bear Grylls this thing, right? Eat cockroaches and live in a cave.
Ayahuasca, what?
Right, ayahuasca. It doesn't have to be that extreme. There can be um, a personal retreat. It is that's as simple as, like you said, I'm just going to go for a drive. Like there's something cathartic about just windshield time, right? Music, no music. Don't necessarily where I'm going to go, but I'm going to go
Podcast
for
about fatherhood.
yeah, right, exactly. Listen to this podcast while you're there. There's something great about that. It's going for a hike. It's going for a drive. Otherwise, I do think the gym is 100% cathartic for that. But when you're looking for fellowship and you're looking for some type of tribe, um, it can be a couple of different ways, or mentorship or otherwise. Like I think that there's obviously things that George is doing that people should check out that you guys are doing here. I think that that's one. I think that your tribe can be local. Your tribe could also be something it is to where it is that you're connecting with guys over, like I'm just listening to so-and-so's podcast that I really get in touch with, or I really like, XYZ book or any of that kind of thing to just get myself in a mental state to where it is that I feel like I have a reprieve. I think if you are looking for some type of fellowship there, I mean, look at whether it's church can be good and bad, and it's not to cast on the church, but some of the largest hypocrites and useless people in the entire world are stuck in the church, right? There's good men's groups there, but you want to have like a real men's group, and sometimes that doesn't always work at church, even though they're well intended.
Yep.
The Mustangs. You want to hang out with the Mustangs. They've got a story.
Yeah, you really do, man. You really do. You got to realize that it's important enough it is for you to find that tribe that if you've got to go somewhere to get it, if there's a retreat somewhere, there's something somewhere it is that you really identify with, it's worth spending the time and money to do that. We all can't be so fortunate to have something in our backyard. If you can find it, awesome. I think we've started, helping guys, kind of put just, fellowship groups together with their own people and whatever their community is, you know, get 3 or 4 guys together it is that are kind of thinking the same way. Have some fellowship, have a little bit of a topic or an agenda it is that you want to talk about. Turn your freaking phones off, put that shit aside. If you need to go somewhere, if somebody doesn't have a house or convenience to where it is that, the kids are running around with pool noodles and Nerf guns or something like that, have something in an environment that will allow for that kind of armor off reprieve to where guys can be kind of engaged and authentic, without the fear of judgment, and really have some good conversations. I think it's important.
Yeah. To the men listening, no one's coming to save you. You got to go make it happen yourself. And so maybe that terrifies you that you're gonna have to like reach out to someone. My advice, my number one advice for all the guys who are like, man, I don't really have a good tribe around me. Again, no one's coming to save you. You have to be a part of your own rescue here. So think of 2 to 3 guys that you know of locally. You got their phone number, all that kind of stuff. You're gonna, maybe your kids are on the same sports team or something where you're like, I kind of like this guy. Just put it out there, man. Like, hey guys, like you and you just make a group thread or whatever, text message. Let's go meet for lunch on Wednesday. Does that work for everybody? Well, how about Thursday instead? Just get something simple like that. Coffee or lunch, just really basic. Just go meet up, get together and be like, hey man, I like you. I think you like me. Like, I just want to get to know you better. And I realize that I'm not taking enough time just hanging out with guys like you that I respect. This has been great. Just start with that and just watch what happens. I assure you, they're going to be like, man, me too. I'm so glad we did this. Can we meet next week as well? Like, I've yet to see, me invite a guy locally to something like that and then be like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right. And,
You know what I mean? So,
I'm breaking up with you.
so even if
George,
you're super
exactly right.
introverted or
What
terrified of
it
that,
tells you, what it tells you is that most every guy it is that's out there that is either married with kids or is, in that kind of 28 to 48, 28 to 58 kind of world, you're all kind of struggling with the same shit.
Absolutely.
Right. And so having
Yeah.
some degree of kind of fellowship or brotherhood or a tribe or just a group of guys it is that gets together and just, but make it purposeful, right? Like don't get together and, fucking play cards and, that's bullshit, right? Like that's for the idiots, right? Like you, the guys it is that are going to be leaders that are going to make a difference, right? Like get together, drop your phones aside, have some good conversations, have some fellowship, take an interest in each other and what it is that they're doing, be purposeful on it. But then when you leave, don't forget about it. Because what'll end up happening, what's happened at some of these, deals it is that we put together is that you end up, if the environment's right, you end up learning things about people it is that they may not have shared anywhere else. And it becomes unbelievably personal and intimate that way it is. And it's your responsibility as a man of honor it is to make sure it is that you keep private things, right?
I love
Yep.
that. Yeah.
And then you make sure it is
1000%.
that those relationships kind of on a go forward is that, hey, I know that George is dealing with XYZ. I know that Justin's going through this. I know that what's it called's doing this. I'm going to make sure it is in a week from now. I'm checking back in. It is with George on X, whatever it is that he was doing, right? So back into that brotherhood, that
Yeah.
relationship.
George on X? No,
Yeah,
not
dude,
George.
that's the stuff it is that makes a huge difference.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's so funny you said that because I recently went on an Acts retreat. It's part of the church down here, and I actually, thankfully, am in a great church network. And it was like I hate to say this, but it was almost like a fraternity. It was a lot of fun. The guys let loose, they cut loose. I mean, we kept it in boundaries, but like it was pretty off the cuff. But it was great because we didn't have phones for like 3 days. It was just a bunch of guys, and there was a few guys who stood up and told the most absolute crazy like life stories, things, trials and tribulations they've been through. And it's like you said, you want to be around guys who are not your cookie cutter, who are like, kind of think out of the box, or who are a little different, unique, or a little rough around the edges. And that's what I was around. And we got to hear a lot of their stories. And we have something called the River Rule. You're not allowed to talk about it outside of that group of men. But man, did it make those stories and all those things so much better, because now like I'll catch myself, I'm like, nope, River Rule, can't talk about that. But then like I'll bring it up with my buddy because it forces me to go talk to him about it, like my thoughts on it. So yeah, I like that. And then like you said, you got to step out of your comfort zone, because like this podcast wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be best friends with George for 20 plus years if I hadn't, said, hey dude, I shouldn't admit this, but we met online, like
Okay.
through, some video games, being
We
dumb
were like
teenagers.
teenagers. So.
Yeah, we were teenagers and we were playing video games. I was like, you're cool as shit, dude. And so like we actually met up in real life. We ended up, hitting it off, and now we've been best friends forever. And same thing with Dustin. Dustin was my neighbor. Dustin couldn't make this episode. But Dustin was kind of hesitant to have some friends in Atlanta because he didn't know how long he was going to be there. And I just straight up looked him in the face. I was like, we're going to be best friends, dude. So just get ready, like buckle up, Buttercup, And he was like, I don't know. And then like now we're thick as thieves. So yeah, you got to
Nice.
step out of your comfort zone. So I wholeheartedly agree with what you both said there, because not a lot of guys are really willing to just say, hey man, I like you. And that's, I guess that's society. I don't know. But if you look at all the strongest, toughest, manliest of men, they're all vulnerable. And I think that's something
They're
that can't
men.
be taught either.
Yeah.
It's very hard to learn vulnerability. And I think if you can find guys that will bring that out of you, I think that's a plus. So
Well said.
The other thing you gain from engaging in genuine brotherhood like that is the power of perspective. Because it's so easy to, in your own life, kind of have your own blinders on, right? Like, oh, my problems are so big and all that kind of thing. And it's not, don't mishear me. I'm not talking about comparing trauma and having a competition as like a race to the bottom. But when you surround yourself with other guys who are going through stuff too, and they're just sharing about it, you realize, you know what? I can handle mine too. I've got enough strength. It's not as bad as I was. Our minds can really play tricks on us in the wrong way. And when you have that power perspective, you can then turn your mind into a weapon, an advantage, as opposed to a hindrance to you. And I've found for me personally that is one of the most powerful things about just having these genuine interactions with other men that I trust, that I've put the effort in building good relationship with, is inadvertently gain that perspective every time we meet, right? My problems get a little bit smaller. My loads get a little lighter. My energy to just face the day again is just that much higher. And I don't think it's some, like George is some special guy or I've got like the best friends or that kind of thing. It's just how we are as men. And I think to deny that is, I think it's been intentionally architected that men are isolated. They stay salty, stressed, angry, lonely, tired, and yearning for more. But our design is to actually engage with other men like that on a consistent basis. So we can stop the discussion there. But guys, you have to reach out. You have to kind of take the risk. I know you're afraid of being rejected, but I assure you that is going to be less intense than the isolation you're feeling right now. The stress and burdens you're feeling right now are amplified because you're cut off from the men who can help you. So reach out.
Amen.
All right, Jeremy, let's we like to wrap these up with some classic fatherhood questions. You're obviously a very successful father, 3 kids, all adult age now. The last one just turned 18 today, so happy birthday to the young man there.
Thank you, sir.
Let's start with this one where if you could rewind the clock and go back to Jeremy as he's expecting the first one, what's the number one piece of advice that you would tell your younger self about being a dad?
I would have taken more time to play Legos. When my kids were born, I was obviously overjoyed, was happy, but I was more stressed with responsibility than I was happy. And the stress of the responsibility and the burden of making sure it is that I showed up and I provided for these people, I allowed to overwhelm my happiness. And I don't think it is that I did a good enough job showing my wife and practicing with my kids the happiness of that blessing in our family, because of the burden of the stress that I allowed to cover me overshadowed that. And I did that over and over and over again. I think if I were to go back and do it again, I would have felt less guilty about playing Legos, right? The phone call can wait. The meeting can wait. All this other kind of shit is really not that important. But taking an hour to play Legos, taking an hour to go ride bikes, to do that kind of a thing, it is. And then go to the phone call or the meeting or whatever else it was. Because when I was on the phone call, I was guilty that I wasn't playing fucking Legos. Right? And so if I would have prioritized that, everything else would have fallen into place.
It's powerful, man. I'm glad you said that because I'm gonna have to think on that myself. I'm trying to stay in the moments because I blinked and my kid's 3 and I'm like, what? And I have 2 other babies now and I'm like, jeez, one of them's about to start talking. I'm like, life comes so fast and people just don't realize.
My wife and I were just talking about the same thing, man. My youngest is 18 and is 6'5.5" and grows whether we feed him or not.
Oh, it's a big boy.
Right? And I'm like, dude, he's our youngest is 18 and he's going to graduate in a year and be out of the house. And it's, there's a next chapter there. It is that's good and a blessing to see it is that you get these 3 that are out of the nest that are growing and going and thriving and doing. But you're like, damn, man, like it was a blink. Like it happened quick. Like have you guys ever seen Meet Joe Black?
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Right. So you remember that scene. Anthony Hopkins is at his birthday. It's his 75th birthday or whatever it is. And, they're lauding and applauding and doing all these kind of things. And everybody's there and it's so great. And he's the master of the universe and all this other kind of stuff. Right. And he gets up there and he just goes, wow, like 75 years, man. Like, doesn't it go by in a blink? And it does with your wife and your kids and everything. So you know what, man? Just take a few minutes and play fucking Legos. Right. It's all right.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, man. So one of the other father questions we ask is if you had like a core memory or like a favorite memory that you had with one of your kids or with all your kids, what memory would that be and why?
It is not the one that comes to mind, and it's because of the cascade effect it is that it's happened because of that experience. Has been so extraordinarily beneficial. So my eldest son was an extraordinary soccer player. My youngest son's an extraordinary soccer player. And so when my oldest son was growing up, you're doing all the stuff that, you do, and you're traveling and doing and going here and going there and all this other kind of thing, giving all your money, to the stupid soccer club, American Red Cross, so I can afford the dues. And right, like it just sucks the fucking life out of you, right? Like I'm going to write a book. It is that, I love my kids more than my parents love me because they never did any of this shit, right? You going to soccer practice? Ride your bike, kid. Get the hell out of here, right? So we were, we were at a soccer tournament in Vegas. And like all of us as a family, always support everybody. So it's not, that Joshua has a game and then we come home and everybody's like, well, how'd you do? Well, you don't have to ask how he does because when he has a game, we all go. But this was, and it was the same thing for the other two. Whenever they had, we all go and support. But I think it was something to where it is that like my son had a game on in Seattle, Joshua had a game in Vegas. And so it was like a divide and conquer day that every parent goes through. So Joshua and I are in Vegas. And we're staying in old Vegas at the time because that's where the team was staying, right? So this wasn't Bellagio. This was the other part of Vegas, right? And so we get have the game that day, the team dinner, all this other kind of stuff. We get back to the hotel, and he didn't have a game the next day till later in the afternoon, so we didn't have to be up at 6 a.m. or anything. So it's 9:30 or 10 o'clock in Vegas, and we're like, "You tired?" Nope, me neither. Hungry? Nope. Me neither. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? And I was like, okay, let's play the questions game. And he's like, all right, what's that? I said, I don't know. I'm making it up as I go. And he's like, okay. And I said, here's the deal. And Joshua was maybe 17 at the time. And so I said, we're going to play the questions game. 5 questions. You can ask me any 5 questions that you want. And same for me to you. You 100% have to tell the truth. There is absolutely nothing off limits. And nothing leaves this room. And we're like, And I was like, you want to play? And he's like, pauses for a minute, like,
I don't know.
He's like, yeah, I'm down. Like Joshua's this at it. Joshua's this like, you can't poke him because he's like, fuck you, I can do that. Right. So he's like, yeah, I'll play. And so 5 questions ends up turning into like 15 because the first question's like, what's your favorite color? Or some gay shit like that. Right. And it's the next is like more so about, have you ever done cocaine or a hooker on a Tuesday in Vegas? And it's like, well, no, right. But questions get really deep. And the exercise post that was the fact it is that I got to know Joshua as Joshua and not Joshua, my son. And that Joshua got to know me as an individual and not me as his father. Because me, just like him, have shortcomings. You have fears. You have regrets. You have things that you're not proud of. You have decisions you wish you didn't make. You have things you wish you had done. And Joshua, as my son, doesn't get to know that with me as his father. But he does get to know that with just me as Jeremy. And the same thing for him. And so that has been 8 years ago now. And so our family has kind of taken that into the questions game to where the 5 of us will play together. Or I'll play just one-on-one with my kids. And so now I get to know each of my kids as individuals, not my kids as my kids, but as beyond that. I play that with my daughter and her serious boyfriend that have been together. Great. Have some whiskey and a cigar, kid. Let's sit down. We're going to play the questions game, big boy. You out? You in? And, my daughter's like, perfect. Right?
He's like, oh, shit.
Oh, shit. But what's happened out of this is like that connectivity for us as a family has elevated so much. It is that I haven't met anybody that has the dynamic of a family that we do. And now my kids are playing that with their friends. That's and awesome. My daughter and her boyfriend are playing that it is with their friends and their couples. And it just creates this degree of connectivity in a world that is just a veneer of bullshit over everything that's so surface level. There's nothing that's actually deep. That's just been incredible. And so that memory, although it really started with Joshua, has been extraordinary, but it's kind of cascaded through all my kids and my wife and my friendships and my relationships. And it's just been awesome.
This for so many different reasons. One, it wasn't this extravagant thing, right? I think this is a huge trap men fall into of we got to do this big gesture, spend a ton of money. We got to do this massive thing and then we'll be good with our family or then our marriage will be better or whatever, right? So I love the simplicity of this. It's just you and your son with some time to kill in the hotel room or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it was just boring and basic, but it's the intentionality of the father that started it, right?
Yeah.
Love that. That's number one.
Thanks, brother.
And then two, it highlights how important it is as men. You have to have emotional intelligence. It is a requirement to be a good husband and father, to be a good leader of anything, to be emotionally intelligent. You can't just be this tough robot. You have to be able to connect. And men initiate, and that doesn't just mean sexually, you cover distance emotionally because it's our job to kind of set the conditions for others to open up. And that's how you learn people. And especially as a father, the most important people to become student of and learn and figure out is your children. And so I love that example because it just highlights two critical kind of myths about manhood and as it relates to fatherhood too, that it doesn't have to be extravagant and it is about that connection, that emotional kind of spiritual connection we make with other humans that is really kind of initiated by a strong masculine presence, right? And that the question game, it's all on the table, right? There's a lot of strength involved in that because he probably asked you some hard stuff that you had to kind of lay it out there, right? And again, it's the courage to connect. And so I love that so much, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks,
What a
buddy.
beautiful example.
I want to add to that too. I think it makes you think as well. If you know you're going to play this game and it's something you're going to practice with your family, you're going to make better decisions because you're not going to be able to look your kid in the face and say, "Oh yeah, I did this with this person and not your mom," and they're like, "What?" Like you could alter their life and their perspective on you if you're not careful. So it makes you really think about the judgment calls you make in your life. And none of us are perfect. We all screw up. We all get chased by our demons. But I think that's genius because it will lead you to think more as a family man and more as a father and a husband to make the right decisions and to say, okay, I can answer these questions and be proud of myself instead of, uh-oh, like things like that. So yeah, that's pretty genius, man. I think I'm gonna take that on myself. So
Yeah, it's currently patent pending. No, I'm just kidding, man. It is.
for 10 payments of $999, you can have this.
Download the link below. Here we go. Right. No, it's not. Again, this is one of those things of just, some of the coolest experiences are the things that just kind of happen, right? That you don't plan for. Like you said, George, is that, we all think we got to do this big, wonderful, grand gesture and, balloons and fireworks and all this other kind of shit. And sometimes just simple and genuine, presence is really just, dude, it's the stuff that can't be bought, right? And we remember that more so than spending a couple $1,000 on some fancy dinner or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, what a beautiful example. Thanks for sharing that with us
Yeah,
and with the audience. And guys, there you go. There's a great tip. Start planning ahead for that one. I definitely plan to do similar things more frequently with my family. So thanks for sharing that, Jeremy. All right, Jeremy, where can people find you? I know you have your own podcast, the Jeremy B. Hill Show. What else you got going? Where can people follow along and engage with you?
Yeah, you got it. Thanks for asking, brother. So yeah, from a business side, JB Capital is pretty easy to find, jb-capital.com. You can find us on, anywhere it is, social and LinkedIn and all that other kind of stuff. From me personally, really pretty good on LinkedIn and Instagram. It's just the Jeremy B. Hill. Look us up, pretty easy to find, but anybody want to engage, question, connect, have fellowship, drink whiskey, have cigars, all that kind of stuff. We do that pretty regularly. So.
Awesome, Jeremy. Well, man, this has been a real privilege and really appreciate the advice and wisdom. Any final thoughts for the audience before we close?
Standards, man, right? It comes back to the fact that having a standard is that you hold that you can be proud of yourself about. And if you can hold that standard and be proud of yourself, then it's easy it is to kind of emulate that and cascade that down for your wife and your kids. And the better your wife and your kids, the better the rest of the world serves up to be. So.
Amen. Well, this has been another episode of the Present Fathers podcast. Go check out Jeremy on his socials. I'm definitely going to be following along closely. Got a mountain of wisdom here to extract from. So thanks, Jeremy, for sharing. And with that, dads, let's get back out there climbing that mountain of fatherhood. We will see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching this episode of the podcast. If you're on YouTube, drop a subscription to us. And if you are listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave us a review. It helps greatly. If you are also ready to level up as a man, check out Elite Sentinel Coaching, our program designed specifically for men, where we forge men into leaders. We turn cowards into kings, weaklings into warriors. Become the hero in your story. Join us today.